It's live now.
Okay. So we are live now. We have called to order. We observed a moment of silence. We recited the Pledge of Allegiance. We did the roll call. All council members are present with the exception of Councilwoman Reed, and that's most likely a technical difficulty, and she will join us as soon as she is able. Next is the approval of the agenda. I'm going to ask to make one addition to the agenda, which is to discuss and approve directing the city manager to work with the city attorney and reach out to MML and or ICMA or some other organizations and look into the possibility of bringing in a consultant to help us move forward more effectively as a team. So I'm going to ask that be added. And I know Councilman Smith had something he wanted to have removed from the agenda.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. Item B under consent calendar, receive and file February 2020 and March 2020 revenue and expense reports. I believe these were the financial statements that were tacked on to the end of a few of our packets that were never presented or discussed. I don't think we should be asked to approve anything that was never presented or discussed to us. It makes me wonder what's in there that we're not being shown. So I will ask that be removed from the consent calendar.
And we'll put it on the next council meeting to have ask Mr. McCleary, and if he wants to have Tom Mead or whatever to just walk us through those reports so we can have a discussion. Other council members have things they want added or removed. Okay. So I will move that the agenda as is, with the exception of adding an item to look for outside assistance and moving forward in more productive terms, and removing the review or the approval of the February and March revenue expense reports. We'll put that on the next agenda and have a presentation and discussion on that. Okay. If there's no further changes, all those may I have a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next is we have no public hearings or presentations. First is the public comment section, specifically to agenda items. 3 minutes. Please state your name and address. Please stay to the agenda items and stay to the items and not personal attacks or between the lines negative comments about people or their motives, which applies to other members of the public, city employee and staff, or members of this council. This is not the venue for that. So are there public comments this evening on the agenda?
Yes. O'Neill Warnsley.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Council, residents of Albion at home listening. I just would like to speak in regards to agenda item B and L. But first, I would like to recognize our healthcare professionals and our first responders, those that are keeping us healthy and safe, as well as I'd like to notice our workers that are at gas stations, pharmacies, grocery stores, and all the other places that are deemed essential under the governor's ruling. I'd just like to say thank you to them, because without them, our world would be actually completely shut down. And so with that being said, I would like to encourage council to put thought into figuring out a plan that is going to—
Mr. Warnsley, I agree with everything you said, but it's not on the agenda. Please stick to the agenda.
Okay, I apologize, Mr. Mayor, but we, agenda item B, you guys are talking about essential workers, non-essential workers, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and so I'm currently talking about essential workers, you know, as we go along with the plan of having, you know, deciding on who is essential and who's not essential.
Okay.
Okay, so if there's any way that we could pause that and give me an extra 30 seconds, I'd appreciate it.
Go ahead and have an extra 30 seconds.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to hope and ask that, you know, council is able to come up with a plan to make sure that, you know, our city is kept safe in those times as we begin to open up to, I guess, further stimulate our economy, but also, like I said, just keep our health at the forefront. In regards to agenda item L, I would like to bring to the attention of council that on June 4th, 2018, it was voted that there would be intent put forth to make sure that First, Second, Third, Wild Street, Hartwell, and West Broadwell would have some focus when it comes to allocating funds for our roads. So I would just like to remind council that 3 of your current standing members voted to make that come to fruition in 2020. So again, I've heard talks about some plan on Clark Street for those roads there. I think, you know, us in Precinct 1 have waited our fair share and our turn. And I just hope that council is reminded that, you know, it was voted upon, and I hope that we can stick to the plan and, you know, follow through with that. With that being said, thank you guys. And also, I think you guys are doing a wonderful job with keeping the meetings going and keeping it accessible to the residents of Albion. I love it. Thank you. Everybody have a nice night and stay safe.
Thank you, Mr. Worsley.
Thank you.
We have further public comment this evening, Chief?
Yeah, I have Garrett Brown's hand up, but I don't see a microphone.
Mr. Brown? Anybody else, Chief? We'll come back to Mr. Brown.
Yeah, no, that was it.
Okay. Mr. Brown, do you have public comment?
Yeah, there's no microphone showing up for his connection, so.
Okay. Next item, if there's no further public comments, we'll close public comments and we'll move to the consent calendar. We have one item on the consent calendar, remaining on the consent calendar, which is the approval of the regular session minutes from the 6th of April. May I have a motion?
Apologize, Mr. Mayor, I finally got it.
Okay. Mr. Brown, public comment.
This is for agenda items. Just again, I wanted to reiterate that if the council were to take action to try to include prohibiting council members from serving as poll workers, that really it just strikes me as more vindictive than actually good policy making. Because again, like I mentioned at the last time this was on the agenda, no one who serves as a poll worker is unbiased. They all vote, so they all have someone they prefer. So I'm not seeing the clear purpose in doing that, because if someone, let's say a supporter of a particular candidate for mayor, donated to their campaign and they were a poll worker, why would we reason that they might do something that was detrimental to the outcome of the election? So I don't think that's good policy making. The other thing I was going to say, and I think the discussion for streets, this kind of brings up something that the council in 2018 actually made a commitment to First, Second, and Third Streets.
Mr. Brown, what agenda item are you referring to now? If it's the millage, then that's talking about renewing the millage.
Yes.
Okay, so what do you have to say about renewing the millage?
Well, part of the renewing the millage is we want to make sure that we don't have to wait until the millage is renewed to fulfill our commitment to First, Second, and Third Streets, and a particularly distressed part of town, and residents and neighbors in that area have, expected that because the city gave its word, and I'm sure that people will, if they don't see the benefit to their neighborhoods, much like the sidewalk assessment that we had that was not successful, why would they support a millage for the continuation of that? So, I think that that's something that council has to really consider. And then that's it. I'll say the rest of my comments to the second public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief, do we have any other public comments this evening?
No, that appears all at this time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so
I think I somehow muted everybody.
Okay, so
There you go.
may I have a motion to approve the regular session minutes for April 6, 2020?
April. So moved.
Okay, support? I'll support. All those in favor of approving the regular session minutes for April 6, 2020, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, they are approved. First item for individual discussion. Request approval, second reading and adoption ordinance 2020-04, an ordinance to amend chapter 14, article 2, to add division 5, sections 14.112 to 14.115, humane treatment of dogs. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there support?
Support. Support.
Okay, discussion. This is the second reading. It's in the packet. City Attorney Harkins, do you want to give us a 30-second overview or anything?
Sure. So as we went over with the council last time, this there was nothing in the specific sections of our chapter dealing with animals as relates to the treatment of dogs. So what we've added in is some items as relates to the humane treatment of dogs, making sure that their tethers, chains, ropes, leashes have to be of a reasonable length, long enough so that the animal won't injure itself, but not long enough where they can attack somebody off the property. It prevents, prohibits people from not providing their dogs with shelter. Obviously providing when it's too hot or too cold. They've got to provide the animal with food and water. And then it provides a penalty for violation of 93 days, up to 93 days and up to $500 in fines or both.
Any questions by council? Councilman Smith? You're muted.
Yeah.
I would be remiss if I did not bring up cats. We left out cats entirely. That's it.
If there's no further comments, or are there further comments? Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Ms. Dominguez, read the roll, please.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Dean,
I think she's frozen.
Smith,
Yes.
Lawler,
Yes.
Spicer,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
and Mayor Atchison.
Yes. Okay. Next item B, discussion definition of essential, non-essential employees under Governor's Order 2020-21. Mr. McCleary, do you want to say anything to address that? I know you had meetings and discussions with council members between the last time and now.
Yes. Your Honor, just real quick, the city of Albion is following Governor's Executive Order 2020-42, the stay at home, stay safe order, to determine how we identify who are essential workers and who are non-essential. Basically, the Governor's Executive Order follows the federal cybersecurity and infrastructure security agency's guidelines on determining who are critical infrastructure workers. And there's several categories of workers that CISA identifies as critical infrastructure workers or essential workers. So the governor's order recognizes those classifications in determining who are essential workers. She does go a little beyond that in identifying some other workers that don't apply to us, but I can tell you from the city standpoint, we have identified several departments as critical infrastructure workers or essential workers. Our public safety department, all of their functions are essential. Our public services department, all of their work is essential to the extent that it protects or sustains life
Can you hear me? Support.
as determined by the governor's executive order. Our building, planning, and code enforcement functions, again, as long as they comply with the governor's executive order for sustaining or protecting life, those functions continue. The governor's executive order also identifies functions that sustain or maintain basic business operations as essential. So our finance and treasury department workers are also critical infrastructure workers. To the extent possible, we are maintaining the social distancing. We're staggering work schedules to perform those critical infrastructure tasks. In the Department of Public Services, our water treatment plant, wastewater treatment plant, street maintenance, park maintenance, cemetery maintenance, and burials are all essential work. And so we are doing the best that we can to comply with the governor's order, but still make sure we are maintaining basic city operations. People can still use the city parks, the open space, but we are not allowing people to use any type of playground equipment or facilities because we're trying to prevent as much as we can the spread of the coronavirus. So we're doing the best that we can to try to re-identify as situations change who our critical infrastructure workers are. And I really have to praise all of our city employees for the work that they have been doing under the COVID-19 public health emergency. Everybody has stepped up to the plate. They've gone above and beyond the call to duty in carrying out their work. We appreciate so much our critical infrastructure workers who have had to report to their job sites and continue their work during this very difficult time. And I also appreciate so much all of the employees who have been working from home during their normal work hours, doing a lot of functions from home that I thought we would have more struggles with than what we ended up having. So I have to really give a lot of credit to all of our city employees. I appreciate each and every one of them so much.
Okay. Comments by council. Councilwoman Spicer.
Thank you, Mayor. City Manager McCleary, I obviously have not visited our parks since the governor's stay safe, stay home order. So, but what exactly have we did to in the parks, the ones that have playground equipment, what exactly have we done to prevent children from playing on those equipment? Have we covered them? Have we roped them off? Or can you speak to that, please?
We put caution tape around the play structures as a warning to parents and to children not to use the equipment. Anybody who is adamant that they want to use the equipment are going to be able to access it. There's really no way to completely prevent people from using it. But what the caution tape does is it reminds people, because I think more times than not, I think that far and away the majority of our citizens want to comply. They want to be safe. They want their children to be safe. But sometimes they forget. When they go out, they want to enjoy the sunshine. They want to enjoy the parks that we have, and sometimes they forget that by touching some of those surfaces, like the playground equipment, is a way for them to contract or pass along the virus. And so the caution tape is more of a reminder to people: please don't use this equipment so that you are safe.
Thank you. Can't hear you.
Do you have comments or any other council members? Seeing none, we'll move to the next agenda item, which is C. May I have a motion to direct the city manager and city attorney to conduct an internal investigation into potential violations of state, county, and local laws, regulations, statutes, ordinances, the City of Albion Charter, and local city ordinances and internal city policies and procedures associated with the operation of the City of Albion's tree dump. May I have a motion?
So
Let's
moved.
move in. Okay, is there a second? I'll second that. Discussion.
Since
Councilman Smith.
I guess I'm the one who brought this up. I have been working, trying to work with City Manager McCleary, kind of behind the scenes and keeping him informed, as you can tell by some of the emails that are in the packet. The tree dump has been abused quite heavily as of late, and who knows for how long. There have been a lot of things that have gone on. Trees have been taken down in the tree dump recently. Outside concerns, actually commercial concerns, are using the tree dump for disposing of their timber waste. Burning has been going on unattended, and during some high wind times. These are the concerns that I have in the tree dump, and the fact that Mr. McCleary, I did find the funny part. If you go into the city homepage, the web page, go to departments, public services, and scroll down, you'll find a tab in the FAQ section that says, when is the tree dump open? And that will tell you all of citizen requests for more open hours. The tree dump will be open 2 Saturdays a month, beginning in April of each year. The tree dump available to residents for disposal of residential yard waste is open from April through October each year, 8 a.m. to noon on the 2nd Saturday of each month, and noon to 4 p.m. on the 4th Saturday of each month. Commercial businesses are prohibited from using the tree dump. Residents will need to purchase a $5 annual pass at the city clerk's office to use the tree dump. Any special tree dump openings will be printed in the newspaper. That is on the city website if you look deep enough. But that's kind of the gist of it, that our tree dump has been quite heavily abused. I'm not sure how much of it is due to non-caring from city employees in the past, or just lack of education of new employees coming in. but this is something that does have to be addressed. We've already been hit by the Department of Environmental Quality for, you know, things going on in our tree dump that have to be addressed, that are not being addressed. This is something that we have to get on top of. You know, it's not something we can keep kicking the can down the road. This has to be addressed. I yield.
I see Councilman Reed. We see you. It looks like you've joined us back now. And any other council members wish to comment on this?
Councilman Williamson had his hand up.
Oh, I apologize. Councilman Williamson.
I guess I don't, so like, I'm not against trying to figure out if something wrong is going on, or I'm just wondering, is there suspicion that there's widespread problems?
In a word, yes.
Mr. McCleary?
Counselor, so there have been issues with the tree dump for many, many years.
Mhm.
I am the first to admit to you that the tree dump has not been properly managed in probably decades. I can also report to the council that the staff that I have right now, especially our acting public services director, Mike Lurkey, who I believe is in attendance at this meeting, is working very hard right now to try to bring the tree dump up to standards. He has been in contact with Eagle to find out what the requirements are for registering the tree dump, for properly managing the tree dump, being able to get it back open to the public for use for depositing yard waste. And as the council is already aware from a report that you received over a year ago, there was an inspection that was done in March of 2018 by the state regarding the tree dump, and they identified several deficiencies with the operations of the tree dump. These items do need to be taken care of, and I can assure you that Director Lurkey is working hard with the state to try to bring the facility into compliance. There have been some things that have not been done properly in the recent past. The handling of yard waste that was at the tree dump and moving it to other locations that never should have been done. And again, as city manager, I'm the first one to tell you that it should not have happened. But I can tell you that my administration is focused on doing what needs to be done and doing it right as far as managing the tree dump and getting it back into compliance. So I am not going to argue with anyone about the fact that things have not been done properly in the past, but I want to assure the council that we are working hard on this issue to address the deficiencies.
Yeah, so for edification of all of council, the inspection in 2018, Mr. McCleary just mentioned, the inspection report or the letter that came from the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality was issued last year in 2019 in March. And in April, the then acting director, Mr. Phillips, Kent Phillips, the tree dump was shut down. And the public were told, hey, we can't use the tree dump because we got issues and whatnot. And as Ms. Councilman Smith mentioned, the requirements within that, and I applaud our city manager, yes, we have to comply with that. There was a report that was supposed to have been submitted. I don't know if it was, not a report, but a plan. So bottom line is, yeah, we have issues that go back a long time. We need to get those fixed, and I have faith and confidence you'll do that, Mr. McCleary. But then we have more recent things within the last couple of months, and there are a variety of things that do cause concern, whether city property, trees. city equipment is being used, do we have contract, anyway, that sort of thing. So I absolutely agree with Councilman Smith that having this looked at, I spoke with our city attorney, and so the motion is to have the city attorney work with the city manager and for them to take a look at that and identify the problems so that they can be fixed.
Your Honor, if I could just add something. So the more recent activities that have taken place, the removal of, I think, 3 trees at the tree dump. The discussion that I've had with our acting director is that those trees were removed because they were leaning over the access to the tree dump. And that was why those trees were removed. And if I could, Your Honor, if it's okay with the council, if I could ask Acting Director Lurkey if he could make some comments in that regard.
Certainly.
He is listening, but his mic is not working.
Okay. Well, let me give other council members a chance to make comments if they wish, and if you can sort that out. Otherwise, we can move on, or you can come back and address it. And the other council members wish to make a comment. Councilwoman Reed, but you're muted. You're on mute, Lynn.
It doesn't show that she's muted, but we can't hear her.
Okay. Any other council members wish to make comment?
I know Marcola wants to make a comment because, and she's saying she's muted too, also.
Okay.
She sent me a text.
All right. Mr. McCleary, do you have anything to add?
Thank you.
Oh, okay, Councilwoman Lawler, go ahead.
I know I didn't want to make a comment. I just was trying to make sure that I was unmuted. I appreciate it.
Okay. Still can't hear Councilwoman Reed. Mr. Larkey? Mr. McCleary?
Your Honor, so there were also concerns raised about the gates being open at the tree dump in March. And the gates were open for a 2-week period because we were having sludge from the wastewater treatment plant being shipped out for application on area farmland. And because those shipments come and go at different times of the day and well into the evening, those gates had to stay open so that the company could come in and load the trucks and take the sludge away. So I just wanted to provide that clarification as to why the gates were open for that 2-week period. I was hoping that Director Lurkey would be able to shed even more light onto the operations of the tree dump, but
All right, he's on.
Oh, okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't know exactly which question you wanted me to address.
We're talking about the tree. We're talking about the tree dump right now.
Okay. Just to give you an overview on the tree dump from what my findings are for the last 2 months. They came in and did that, what you guys were referencing in 2018, which was they walked through and more or less, from my understanding, shut the tree dump down from any more yard waste, including leaves. But they still had it open for our use as far as the DPW goes for sticks, limbs, and brush. Previous management has let the tree dump registration lapse. On top of that, we had a Eagle report due last October. I have since then sent in the registration as of, I think it was last week sometime, and working on the report that was due last October. I'm working with Aaron Hyday is his name. He's an Eagle representative that does the compost. And I'm setting up essentially however he wants it to be set up or whatever he recommends. I also got on Eagle's website and obtained an operator's guide, which is about a 128-page guidebook on how to operate the compost site and what the testing and basically different options that we have to get rid of this compost and to do it properly. To speak on the trees that were removed, those were removed, from my understanding and talking with Mr. Riddle, those were removed by Rusty Four Farms, and they were trees that were on the corner of the laneway that goes between the wastewater plant and the main tree dump road. And those were leaning to one side, so that those were removed. And then to hit on the gate being open, I know it's been an issue in the past. I've talked to the street department in the short time that I've been doing this job to make sure that's secure every night when they're not using it. And also, we did have sludge that was hauled off in March. That was for land application. The holding tanks are actually located back by the tree dump. And the tanker trucks that come in and out, they have to use that main gate because they can't drive through our facility. So they use the main gate off of Brownswood, and that would be why the gates were open for that period of time. I did tell the company, Michigan Agribusiness, to go ahead and shut down the gates at night and more or less make sure they were secure. Is there any other questions that I can help with?
Councilman Smith?
Yes. As late as April 17th, the gates were still open with nobody doing anything. I received communication that the last burn was on March 16th and that the fire was completely extinguished then. I went back and took pictures on March 17th, I believe it was. Yeah, March 17th, which was when I discovered the piles and piles of, for lack of a better term, I think Mr. Lorky used the term tree slab or saw slab from a sawmill from an outside concern. I will not mention names, but the slabs were laying there on the 17th. I went back less than 2 weeks later with another council person, and the entire pile had been lit ablaze. And when we went back, it was a smoldering heap. The fire was not out. It was still smoldering. Smoke was coming out of it. And the same thing again back on April, I believe it was 15th this year, or no, April, around the beginning of April, I'll put it that way. April 7th, I went in and there was a new pile of wood already started by who knows who. And when I went back in there again, the gate standing wide open on April 15th, apparently that pile had been lit off and was still smoldering again on April 15th. So there's some things that are happening that we're not knowing about, or that somebody's not knowing about, or, you know, and this is the problem with the gate standing open. Anybody who wants to can go back in there and do what they want. That's the problem with that part. So, and as I read in the other statement from the web page, this is not intended for commercial use. And apparently that's what's happening. So we need to get a rein on that, and we need to find out who's been dropping the ball all this time. And something,
Okay.
we need to let them know something needs to be done.
Okay, so if there are comments or questions by other council members? Okay, the motion before us is to have that investigated by the city attorney and the city manager. Mr. McCleary, do you have any final comments on this? You're muted, sir.
Sorry about that, Your Honor. So just to say that we definitely share Counselor Smith's concerns about the tree dump. And I don't think anyone more so than Director Lurkey. I'm not sure this rises to the level of needing an investigation. We all understand that the tree dump has been mismanaged for many years. I'm not sure if you know what we will accomplish by doing an investigation. I think it's more important for us to focus on making sure from this point forward we're doing the right things, properly managing the dump, making sure that it's closed to operations that it's not supposed to be used for at this time until we bring it into compliance with DEQ standards or Eagle standards. I think that's the best way to focus on this issue, and I would hope that the council would take that approach.
Mike would like to make a comment.
I'm sorry?
Can you guys still hear me?
Mr.
go
Lorky
ahead,
would
Mike.
like to speak.
Go ahead, Mr. Lorky.
Can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. So I just wanted to comment on the slabs that were dumped back there. I took a couple pictures of that the day that I was made aware of it by a concerned citizen, and I have the dates and everything wrote down, and I did go back there and tell the worker from Rusty Boar Farms to go ahead and take the load he had back and to get that cleaned up. So I'm not sure as far as the smoldering pile of slab that you were referencing. I don't know if there was some left there or not, but I did check in 2 days after I seen them putting the stuff back there, that there was nothing left. So like I said, I don't know if it was burnt in March or because you referenced stuff in April, and I wasn't really sure about the stuff in April. So that's probably something that was never communicated to me. But I will reassure you, I'm working as hard as I can to make sure this is all straightened out and that we're on board with Eagle and making sure that the tree dump is run properly. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lorky. Any other comments by council?
All right, thanks.
Yep.
Okay. My final comments are, I appreciate you jumping on this, Mr. Lorky, and looking into this. I adamantly am in favor of going forward with an internal investigation so that we can look at this, an outside set of eyes, because there are a lot of questions that I have. I know Councilman Smith has a lot of questions, and we want this to be transparent. We don't want anybody to have the false impression that things are being swept under the rug. And I say the false impression because I'm not accusing or inferring anybody's doing that. But I'm absolutely in support of doing this. If there's any other comments by council, make them now. Okay, Ms. Domingo, would you please read the roll?
Councilmember Reed. Councilmember Reed.
Raise your right hand if you're voting yes.
You're muted, Reed.
Raise your hand and wave it if you're voting yes for an investigation.
Yeah, it shows she's talking, it's just not coming through.
Okay. We'll come back to her.
Okay. Smith.
Yes.
Lawler.
Yes.
Heiser.
No.
No. Williamson.
Yes.
Clark.
Okay.
Mayor Atchison,
Okay, I vote yes, and I see Councilwoman Reed shaking her head up and down, yes.
okay.
So that passes, that's approved. Next item, D, discussion approval to direct city manager and city attorney to conduct an internal investigation into potential violations of the city charter, local city ordinances, and internal city policies and procedures associated with the tree trimming services provided to the city of Albion by private entities or other non-municipal city employees. May I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll support. The discussion on that is, again, this is probably the current practices have been around for a while, and over a period of time, they have degraded from the standard policy, procedures, and practices. At no time, unless it's an emergency, should the city be receiving services or products or anything else from a private entity without having some type of contract in place. Rusty Four Farms, that may be the only entity that's been cutting trees for the city. He's been getting paid with invoices, and some of those invoices, a small number, but some of those invoices are at or above the $5,000 cap that requires council's approval. So there's two issues there. We have work going on that the city's getting billed for. There is no contract, and contracts are very, very important. And I'm going to let Councilman Smith address, or the city manager address, how much money in the past 10 months. Some of it last year, some of it this year, but it's substantial, and that causes me concern. And then there's other questions. Is the city being compensated for the timber? Did we look and look for the best deal we could get, and all of those things? And so this goes into contracted services without any contract. This involves thousands of dollars, and this involves invoices being paid over the $5,000 limit that should have come to council and did not. So there's a lot of things that aren't in accordance with the procedures and policies, and there's questions of whether or not the city is being compensated for the value of the property, meaning the lumber, the timber. And also questions if we're paying for services, since there's no contract, are city employees and city equipment being used? And if we contract for a company to come in and cut trees, and then we provide the labor and the equipment, then that may not be right. So I'll open it up and I'll ask Councilman Smith if you want to add something.
No, you pretty much covered it there. You know, my problem, and yeah, and a lot of it, you know, and I'm not casting stones at anyone. I'm just saying the possible improprieties of ethic violations, as well as charter and ordinance violations in all of this. You know, people are going, and believe I've heard it already from people that have talked about this. Was anybody getting paid under the table? Was somebody getting free lumber? Were being scratched? You know, type of thing. And this is the kind of stuff this is the reason I wanted to bring this to the front, so that it is transparent and it's not behind the scenes, and nobody's going forward with their accusations of quid pro quo and back scratching and things of that nature. That's my main concern, to be sure that we come out of this transparent. And I mean, there's been a lot of violations going on. That's definitely apparent. Who made the violations? Who did the violations? You know, what should we do? Should they be reprimanded? Things of that nature. That's what I'm looking for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
By other council members. Councilwoman Reed, we can't hear you, but I can see you waving your hand. Councilwoman Spicer.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say that I think Councilwoman Reed is still trying to talk. I see if this is absolutely going on, I see a whole host of issues, problems with this situation, and even possibly, financial overpayment, recoupment for the city. So yes, I definitely can support this. Thank you.
Any other comments by other council members? Councilwoman Clark? Councilman Williamson? Okay. Seeing or hearing no further comments by council, the motion before us is to direct the city manager and city attorney to conduct an internal investigation into potential violations of the city charter, local city ordinances, and internal city policies and procedures associated with the tree trimming services provided to the city of Albion by private entities or other non-municipal city employees. Ms. Domingo, would you read the roll and vote yes if you want the investigation, and wave your hand for those that we cannot hear but can see?
Councilmember Smith,
Time out. Mr. McCleary, I think you're muted.
I would like to comment on this before the council takes a vote, just so that it's clear what has happened in this regard. As far as the tree contract is concerned, we have not had a tree contract for 25 years. And I know that the council, I know that you understand that. So this is not something that just happened recently. We have been operating without a tree contract for 25 years. And as council will recall, last fall, right after I took over as city manager, I identified one of our deficiencies as being that we did not have contracts in place for a number of services that we should have in place. That our purchasing processes were not being properly followed, that we were not competitively bidding our services and awarding new contracts on a regular basis for a lot of these things. So at that time, I asked for an appropriation in the budget to purchase the BSNA purchase order software. And what that does is it allows us to have better control and to properly monitor and manage purchases, especially those that are over $5,000. If it's over $5,000, the system will automatically kick that to the finance director and to me to get our approval on those purchases. It will also be a flag for me to be able to determine that there should be a contract in place. There should have been competitive bidding on that item. So that's one of the controls that we are in the process of putting in place, not just for the tree contract, but for all of our contracts. Also, we have set up, we have joined the Michigan Intergovernmental Trade Network so that we are part of a purchasing cooperative, and we are using the BidNet bid system to competitively bid our contracts and purchases of goods and services when our ordinance requires us to do that. We just started using that system. Staff went through training a few weeks ago on the system. One of our departments has already posted a bid opportunity on there. I actually used it for the Albion Building Authority for some services. And I know that Director Lurkey and DPS has a draft out there for the tree contract that he's waiting for me to review so that we can make that active and start that bid process. So this is another item that we as administration have identified as a serious deficiency, and we are working to get this cleared up.
I didn't think it would work.
Thank you, Mr. McCleary.
Thank you.
Okay. So unless there are other comments by council, Ms. Domingo, please read the roll.
Member Smith,
Yes.
Lawler,
Yes.
Spicer,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
Clark, Clark,
She voted yes.
Reed,
Yes.
and Mayor Atchison.
Yes. Okay. Item E, discussion, contaminated compost removal from the tree dump and deposited on city property, including Rieger Park. I requested that. I've had some communication with the city attorney, sent photos and whatnot. And so at this point, I'm convinced you absolutely understand what the concerns and issues are. You articulated, yes, you share that. It should not have happened. Can you tell me what the plan is to rectify it?
Your Honor, the Department of Public Services is working on trying to identify a contractor that we can engage to properly dispose of that material. It cannot go back to the tree dump. Moving that material back to the tree dump would be in violation of the regulations through Eagle. So I know that Director Lurkey is working with Granger right now to try to come up with a contract, because Granger does have access to yard waste disposal facilities that are an approved facility to be able to take care of that material for us. When we are able to get that set up, we intend to come back to council for approval of a contract. I assume it would be over $5,000, so it would need council approval. But I know that Director Lurkey is working to try to identify a contractor who can properly dispose of that material for us. I do want to say, in all honesty and transparency, that material was dumped at Rieger Park, and my understanding at one or two other locations as well, when it should not have been taken from the compost facility, from the tree dump, and moved elsewhere. It has, from what I understand, some other waste mixed in with it, not contamination as you would think, nothing hazardous, but normal solid waste, plastics, metal, what have you. And one of the things that Eagle or DEQ pointed out to us when they did their inspection 2 years ago and then wrote up the report a year ago was that one of the things that has not been properly managed at the tree dump was screening the compost material and making it resaleable. So that material never should have been moved from the tree dump. It never should have been dumped at other city facilities or anywhere else. So again, administration shares the frustration of city council in this regard, and I can assure you that Director Lurkey is working to take care of this issue as well.
Okay, so I have two quick follow-ups, and then I'll call on other council members. Because this involves the environmental quality and environmental rules, regulations, et cetera, I take it exceedingly serious, as I'm sure you do as well. So the first question is, you said there's multiple sites. Would you please provide council with the list of locations, since we now know there's multiple sites, and just a rough estimate, how many loads or whatever is in each of those sites? And then the last thing is, and I almost took this upon myself over the weekend, but I think some consideration should be given. The one in Rieger Park is not a large area. It's been spread out and tamped down. And I think a step in the right direction, because going through this process is going to take some time, is get a couple of city employees over there 10 feet apart and pick up the trash and metal that's sticking up. It is kind of like putting the finger in the resident's eyes whose house is within 15, 20 feet of it. And it's not fair to them. It makes the park look bad. And as I said, that area, personally, I think within a couple of hours, 4 hours tops, all the visible plastics, solids, metals could be picked up. And I'm delighted to hear there's no toxic contamination. That would be a step in the right direction, is something that could be handled relatively quickly, get rid of the visible trash that's sprinkled on our park now. But I would like to find out where the other locations are, please.
I'd be happy to try to get an identification of all those locations.
Thank you.
Mayor, I do want to point out one more thing that you brought up. So my understanding is that there a lot of the material that was relocated in Rieger Park actually came from the dredging of the pond when they were cleaning out the pond for a beach. And so that, my understanding is some of that material was stored somewhere and then it was spread out elsewhere in Rieger Park. And that actually about 1 or 2 dump trucks of material was moved from the tree dump to Rieger Park. So just for a clarification on that.
Okay.
But I will find out more information for you as far as any of the other locations.
Because the residents that live right there, and I think there's 3 family members that live right in that space, shared pictures with me and said, hey, I came back on this day off of travel and I said, hey, the pile's getting bigger. And then it was spread out. And that was in the end of February, March. So some things were still being put out there. So I'll just let that go. If you can get back to us, the full council, on where these other locations are. And I'm not directing, I'm just suggesting that you have some consideration that we could make a step in the right direction. And the residents would feel better if they're not looking at that trash. I think it's, a few hours work going around and picking the stuff up that's obvious.
Well, normally if it was just plastic containers like milk jugs or what have you, I would say it would probably be a violation of the governor's executive order to have my staff go out and do that at this time. But if we've got metal, and some of the pictures that I saw from you, Mayor, showed metal sticking up out of there, that is a safety hazard. That is a health and safety issue. And I think we could probably perform the work because of that.
Okay, any other comments by council? If not, we'll move on. Okay, next item is discussion and approval to modify City Ordinance 2019-09 ethics to specify it is unethical for any city elected official to serve as a city poll worker during any election. May I have a motion? Was that so moved, Councilman Smith?
Yes, so moved.
Okay, is there support? I'll support it. Discussion, and I know Councilwoman Lawler, last council meeting, this was on the agenda and you had question or comments or statement. I'll invite you to go first.
Right now, 2 questions. And the first question is basically a yes or no answer. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. The first question is for Cullen. Hi, Cullen. Do you know
I'm sorry.
of any?
I was muted. I apologize.
Okay. Do you know of any laws that says a council member can't serve on the election board? Just a simple yes or no.
No.
Okay. And Mayor, my second question, I would like to ask the city manager if I could ask the city clerk a question.
Sure.
Okay. Hi, Jill. I just wanted to know, is there anything at the county level that says a council member can't serve on the election board? Just, a simple yes or no. I don't want to spend a lot of time on that question either.
No.
Okay, thank you.
I have,
Councilwoman Spicer.
thank you. I think, can you hear me?
Yes?
Okay, a couple of things. First, what gave rise to this becoming an issue or an issue, making it an issue? Was there a concern that someone's approached by someone about this? Or I guess I want to know what the issue was. How did this come as an issue before council?
Okay, so I'll address two things. One, Councilwoman Lawler's questions and your question, what gave rise to it. There is a distinct difference between what is legal and what is ethical. They're two different terms and they have two different meanings. Legal standards are the minimum that is permitted or prohibited, and ethical standards are based on right and wrong. That's the definitions that I have. So to look at this as to, are there any laws that prohibit it? Not that I'm aware of. Something can be legal and not ethical. And council members, elected officials should be held to a higher standard and should avoid any kind of conduct that even has the appearance of being inappropriate. Okay, so our ethics ordinance talks about having undue influence in personal relationships and financial relationships, and that goes to the heart of this. Every single person on council, including myself, clearly has a vested personal interest in who sits on council. Okay, it does not rise to the level of, as it should, beyond reproach. And so why this is on here is not making it illegal. The term is unethical. So I am absolutely convinced, and the vast majority of people with me that I've spoken to, and they include all across the city, other elected officials, not just here in Albion, and the most common reaction is, well, that's pretty straightforward. Of course it's not ethical. Okay, but I'm putting it on here so that we can vote as a council. Doesn't make it illegal. It just makes it unethical. Did that answer your question?
Oh, well, that was, yeah, it was, it's why what gave rise to this, yeah, because I know the definition and the difference between legal and unethical. But let me just state, prior to putting this on here, did you have a conversation with Councilwoman Lawler and say, you know, hey, I think this, and I know you're the only council person right now that works the polls. This is how I'm feeling. What do you think? You know, I think that as colleagues, and maybe you did, and maybe I should stop. Did you or not, before I go on, before I go to that colleague?
I had a conversation with the city clerk. I had a conversation with the acting city manager during the last election. I had a conversation with the current city manager. I've had conversations with the city attorney. Okay, so it is not illegal. It does not change the fact that I view it as terribly unethical. Okay, so
you did not give Councilwoman Lawler the benefit of respect and talking to her after you talked to everybody else.
That's not the question. It's not a question that I give her the benefit of respect.
It's my statement.
That she is absolutely aware that I don't believe that it's appropriate for any elected official to serve as
whether
a
you
poll
think it's appropriate or not. And I think I have the floor, don't I? So I just want to say that I believe that if we are here to, you know, be a unified council, to, you know, do something that's to a fellow colleague, it's without even giving the benefit of having a conversation with them. It certainly does not cause unity. Actually, it causes division. It's, you know, it's not what I would want to do to someone who I wanted to try and have a good working relationship with. I don't think there's been any issues that I'm aware of with Councilwoman Lawler working at the polls. None of us do that. She's the only one. So this is definitely a single attack. And I'm kind of a little disappointed that, you know, this would even be brought up at this point. She has given no reason for us to suspect that she would be anything but appropriate. I mean, we're questioning her integrity at this point. And if that's the case, then I don't know how you can be working with someone whose integrity you're questioning. Okay, so Having said that, I want to thank you all, and I want to totally be against this situation. Thank you.
Okay, so Councilman Williamson?
Hey, so I had a couple of questions. I think Cullen might be able to ring in on this because I just want some clarity. So this is being added as an ethics situation, but because it is not against state election law for public officials to work the polls, we actually can't enforce this, can we?
So what you can do as a well, so what you've said is correct. So you can't make illegal what the state has designated as legal. But what you can do is, if the council was inclined to do this, you can say as a matter of policy, we don't believe that this is ethical, but you wouldn't be able to enforce any sort of penalty if that were to be violated. It would more or less just be a statement of position, if that makes sense.
So we could not follow the actual procedure for holding council members accountable through the ethics rules, correct?
So if the council wanted to add this in, we'd have to modify the ordinance to basically almost bifurcate this off and just say, we find that the council finds this to be unethical. However, this is not probably the language. I'm just spitballing the language here. It's not subject to the penalty provisions contained in section whatever it is off the top. I think it's like section N of the ordinance.
Okay, I just wanted to know about the enforceability of it. I mean, you can say it's unethical, you can put it in the ethics policy, but you can't actually do anything about it because it's actually not against the law. And I wanted to ask, so as a matter of ethics, we could say it's unethical to do this, but any council person could still serve as a poll worker after we pass this, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Lyle, any other comments, Councilwoman Reed?
Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Because I'm not moving in my picture or anything, and I've been had such a hard time keeping up with things here. I would say, I was asked by, I can just say this. I was asked by 3 people at the last election, why was a council person working the polls? And I told them, was not sure why a council person was working the polls, because she had worked the polls before. And then other comments were made that I'm not even going into. But I have had questions about that.
I'm gonna work.
Okay. My last comment is this. Those of you that want to make this a personal matter, you can make it a personal matter if you wish. This is not directed at any individual. This is directed at elected officials serving at the polls in a small community. And what Councilwoman Reed just brought up, there's a lot more than 3 people out there that observed that and did not think it was ethical, did not think it was appropriate. So this is for our council to vote whether or not we do think it is appropriate and whether it is ethical. If you don't see any issue with it, then by all means say, oh, I don't have any issue. Fine, then vote no. For those of us that do have an issue with it, then we will probably vote yes. Councilman Williamson.
Yeah, thank you. And I'd just like to add, since we're having this conversation about the council making a statement, so whatever way this ends up being voted on, the public, the mayor who tends to speak for council's positions, whichever way this goes, it needs to be supported in the public by the mayor and those who will have to talk about this afterwards. So I want to remind everybody of their obligation to, when the council speaks, the council has spoken as a body, and whichever way it goes, we need to make sure we recognize that going forward.
And
I would like to say something, please.
Go ahead, Councilwoman Lawler.
Okay, thank you. I have 2 amendments I would like to make to this, and also I would like to say something. You said that ethical meant to you right and wrong, and that maybe it might include influence and that it might include, and that it probably includes personal gain. Am I correct?
That is in general. I think legal sets minimum standards, whereas ethical sets a higher standard based on things that are right and wrong. So there is a difference.
Okay, so with that being said, I have to make an amendment to this motion that council members, I don't think that and you know, it's unethical to me, but I never really said nothing, but I'm glad we bringing up ethical stuff so I can kind of put myself on the floor about some things. Nothing harsh toward anybody or anything like that, but these are things that myself and other other people in the community have stated that they have saw that thought wasn't ethical also. So I would like to add two things to this motion, and that is that council members helping those that are running for office. A couple people in the community thought that it was for personal gain. And what they did specify to me that they saw was a council member that was running for office to different precincts. Which, okay, maybe you don't know that precinct, but you know, a council member was helping. And also a council member that might have and that was asking the city workers through via email to come and support a person that was running office, and they asked them to come and support a meet and greet before they were even in office. A couple of us have thought about it, and I do remind each and every one of us that I would like to, you know, reiterate that that is a violation. But you know, okay. So I hope that while we doing a lot of these different investigations on other stuff, that we also do an investigation on that. But with that being said, I really wish that the mayor and myself could have a conversation about this. I really would have liked to know in privacy so that how you really felt about it, because I really feel like I'm being put on the spot, but that's okay. You know, you have to be ready at all times. So these are just some of the things that I am concerned about, along with some of the people in my community. But what I am gonna do is I'm gonna wait and see how this goes, and see if the rest of the council agrees with this revising the ethical ordinance. So with that being said, I think I'm going to take my amendment back.
Okay. Any other comments by council?
So, Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just so I'm clear, if the council were to vote to modify the ordinance, we would need to treat it like a normal modification. We would need to bring it back for first and second reading. I just wanted to make that clear to the council that what you'd be voting on is, yes, we want to see the, you know, bring forth the amendment, but we would still need to do first and second reading after I can put together language and present it to the council.
Thank you for that
Okay.
clarification.
Can I ask one more thing, please?
Go ahead.
What I'm going to do, Cullen, is I'm just going to pull back my amendment. Just scratch it off. I just want to see how this thing goes, if you don't mind.
Are there other council members that want to make any other comments? And the only one that I can't see is Councilwoman Clark. Seeing none, Ms. Domingo, please call the roll.
Councilmember Lawler,
Ms. Lawler cannot vote since it affects her personally and there's income involved.
Council members,
Oh, is that true, Colin?
Well, our charter has hang on, there's a, we have a charter provision that speaks to that.
Maybe in the ethics ordinance itself, this says you can participate in the discussion but cannot vote.
So what our charter says is no member of the council may vote on any question on which they have a substantial direct or indirect financial interest. Otherwise, each member of the council shall vote on each question before the council for determination unless excused therefrom by an affirmative vote of the remaining members of council able to vote on the question. If a question is raised under this section at any council meeting, such question shall be voted on before the question to which it applies is voted on, but the council members affected may not vote on such a determination. So the council would need to determine whether or not Ms. Lawler has a conflict before the main vote. If there is any member of council believes that there is a substantial or direct or indirect financial interest.
So we need to vote on that, right, Colin?
You would need to, if there is a question as to whether or not Councilwoman Lawler has a direct or indirect financial interest, the council would need to vote on that question first. That one automatically Ms. Lawler is not permitted to vote on, and then depending on the outcome of the first motion would determine whether or not Ms. Lawler can vote on the second motion.
Okay, and is it, just because I don't have it right in front of me, is it a substantial direct and indirect financial interest, or is it a substantial interest and then financial direct and indirect are separate?
It says a substantial direct or indirect financial interest.
Okay.
So what's considered substantial? Is $200 over a year substantial, or $400 over a year, or is it $1,000 over a year? Because now you got me thinking, and this is probably off board, had, the rental certification thing comes to an issue, then for a vote, then the mayor would probably be prohibited from voting because he and his wife own rental property. So I'm thinking, what's substantial in terms of financial? Do you have any idea?
Unfortunately, the charter doesn't define what constitutes substantial. Basically, each council member would just have to determine what they view as to be a substantial direct or indirect financial interest. One thing to consider maybe in the future is in our ethics ordinance, we could probably clarify what substantial means, but unfortunately at this point there isn't a definition for it.
Hey, Councilman Williamson.
I'm wondering if Jill, the clerk, Jill Domingo, if she could let us know what a poll worker makes in a year.
it just depends on how many elections they work. Generally, Marcola does not work the general election at all because she's usually running. So she would have 2 elections. It's probably, each election, they probably make between, I would say between $100 and $200, depending on hours.
Thank you. So we have to vote on whether we have to take a vote on whether we believe that Councilwoman Lawler has a substantial direct or indirect financial implication in this. So I guess we should probably vote on that.
Okay, so the vote before us is whether or not there is a substantial financial interest or whether or not Councilwoman Lawler is permitted to vote on this measure. Okay, so Ms. Domingo, read the roll, please.
Can I ask something first, please?
Yes.
I just wanna know, can we clarify and all come together on what substantial means first?
All right.
That's for each
Please.
council member to decide when they cast their vote. Ms. Domingo, please read the roll.
Oh, wow.
Councilmember Spicer,
And we are voting to vote whether she should be allowed to vote?
Yes,
The first vote, point of information, the first vote is whether she has substantial financial, indirect or direct financial an implication in this. So that's the first vote.
That she has. So a
Yeah,
yes
so if you
vote.
vote no, you say she does not.
Okay, gotcha. No.
Well, I just like to add that $600 a year is not substantial.
we've called for the vote, and the first council member has cast their vote. Continue reading the roll, please.
Councilmember Williamson,
No,
Clark,
No.
Reed,
No,
Smith,
did you hear me?
I did.
Yes.
And Mayor Atchison.
Yes. So that fails. So Councilwoman Lawler does not have a substantial financial interest. Ms. Domingo, please read the roll to vote whether or not council is going to declare that it is unethical, not illegal, but unethical for elected officials to serve as poll workers.
And
Okay.
Councilwoman Lawler can vote. Okay, thank you.
Correct.
Yes.
Councilmember Williamson,
What are we voting on?
if you vote no, sorry, point of information, we're voting on the bringing forward a change of ethics to say it is unethical for a council member to serve serve as a poll worker. So if you're voting no, you believe that it's okay for council members. If you vote yes, you want to change the ethics policy to make it unethical for a council member to work the polls.
Wait a
Thank
minute,
you.
I don't understand that. Say it again.
Thank you.
Okay, so if you vote yes, you are voting yes, it is unethical for a council member to work the polls. If you voted no, you're saying you're okay that council members work the polls in accordance with state law.
Thank you.
Ms. Domingo, please read the roll.
Councilmember Williamson,
No,
Clark,
No.
Reed,
Yes.
Smith,
I believe it's unethical, however that comes down. Yes or no, whichever that is.
Spicer,
No.
and Mayor Atchison.
Yes.
did Marcola vote?
No.
Am I supposed to?
Yes, we just voted, so you could vote.
Okay, so I'm gonna say, no, it is not unethical for me to,
Okay, so the motion is defeated. Okay, next, to approve the necessary fiscal year 2020 budget amendments to the appropriate general fund revenue and expense line items for revenues in the amount of $5,160 and expenses in the amount of $5,160 for coding and testing of ballot tabulators for the March 2020 presidential primary election, and to waive competitive bidding requirements due to the sole source supplier, and to approve the payment of $5,160 to Election Source of Grand Rapids, Michigan for the coding and testing of the ballot tabulators for the March 2020 presidential primary election, and direct the city clerk to seek reimbursement for these expenses from the state of Michigan. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there support?
Support.
Okay, so essentially, if I understand what this is, Mr. McCleary, this is a goes in and goes out of, we're gonna spend it and then we're gonna get reimbursed, so there's no net new cost to the city, and this is required to use those vote tabulators, is that correct?
That is, just for clarification, to the city clerk, Clerk Domingo, we are being reimbursed for the full cost of $5,160.
Yes, we're being reimbursed for all of the election costs. Generally, the county does this, but she didn't budget it this year, so she left it up to all of the locals to pay that and then get reimbursed from the state.
Okay, any other questions or comments by council? Councilman Smith?
When we voted for the purchase of this equipment, that was originally $5,160, wasn't it?
Mr. McCleary?
This isn't for the equipment, it's for the actual coding and testing of the ballot.
I appreciate that, ma'am. My question is, what was the original cost of this equipment? I'll tell you, the reason I'm making this point is because we were told that we were purchasing this equipment when it was originally brought before us. We agreed to do so, no problem, because obviously with things going the way they are, we want things to be as easy as they can. I do not remember being informed of any extra $5,160 for setting the machine up. So it's almost like there's a second charge coming in that we didn't know about. I'm wondering why that is.
Well, if I could answer, maybe Jill could also add to my comments.
Whatever.
The coding and testing of ballot tabulators is something that has to be done for every election. It has nothing to do with the equipment itself. It has to do with the implementation of that election and making sure that the tabulators are able to accurately read and tabulate the ballots. It's two separate things.
So this is something that's done every election cycle?
Yes.
I think Ms. Domingo explained that what I gather from it, normally this is budgeted by the Calhoun County Elections Clerk. And so it's not charged us, but since it wasn't budgeted in this case and has to happen, we're going to front the money, pay for it up front, but then we will apply for and be reimbursed. Is that correct?
I got that. I read this in a totally different direction. So I saw it as something different. My apologies. I yield.
Okay. There's no further discussion. Ms. Domingo, please read the roll.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Lawler,
Yes.
Spicer,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
and Mayor Atchison.
Yes. Okay, next, request approval of mechanical amusement device licenses for Albion College, Leisure Hour Club, Red Box Automated, Spartan Stores, and Family Fair. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there support? Okay. So for discussion, I have a question whether any of members of council have a particular concern or question for any of these four. Okay. So.
Hello.
Councilman Smith.
I believe Ms. Spicer had her hand up first.
Councilwoman Spicer.
Go ahead, Councilman Smith. You probably are
No,
going to
ma'am,
ask.
your hand was
No,
first.
he was waving to get my attention because I was looking at the agenda.
I just want to ask the city attorney, does any of the establishments here that are requesting a mechanical amusement license owe any taxes to the city? And I'm sure you probably did your due diligence and they don't, but I just want a verbal confirmation.
We would have to check with the finance director, but I would say that nothing has been brought to my attention prior to tonight's meeting.
So if we approve this and somebody does, one of these agencies does owe us money, then what would we have to go back and do? Unapprove it? I mean, I guess I guess I'm wondering why haven't this been checked out? Why would we get this in front of us if we don't know if they owe the city money?
I don't have a good answer for that. Generally, mechanical amusement permits don't come to my office for approval. Those are something that are usually go through the other departments of the city.
Okay, so I guess who put this
Do you
on
know-
here, and it kind of lends to what Councilman Williamson said about bringing stuff to us without, checking all the boxes, dotting all the i's, crossing all the t's, because, I don't know. I guess I don't want to approve something if I don't know, if my question isn't answered. Does the city manager have any idea, or?
Well, one question I have for the city attorney is, because I know that under the charter, the city cannot contract with someone who is in default to the city. Is the granting of a license considered a contract, Colin?
No, I wouldn't say that it is.
Okay.
Councilman Williamson.
I think what Councilwoman Spicer is bringing up is that we've had some issues in the past with certain businesses or institutions being significantly indebted to the city, and we've actually turned down these mechanical operation licenses in the past for that. And so there's somewhat of a desire there's a desire by I think most of us on council that we want to be fair in using not approving mechanical licenses as a way to encourage people to be compliant. So Colin, is there any problem with us tabling this for the next meeting if we want to know that information?
I don't have any particular problem with it. The only potential red flag is I don't know. We would have to check with either the clerk or manager to see when those 4 licenses expire. Usually, looking at the list of businesses, usually they're pretty good about coming to council in advance of their expiration date. But there is a potential that they could expire before your next meeting. I can say generally, we've only had problems with 1 or 2 businesses not keeping current on their taxes, such that this has been a red flag in the past, and those businesses are being dealt with. But I would have to defer to either the manager or the finance director about whether or not any of those entities owe the city any monies.
Could we potentially,
Councilman Williamson.
could we conditionally approve these pending a review? And if we find any red flags that can be brought up at the next meeting?
Or table it till the next meeting? Same thing. Doesn't matter. I'm good with either one.
Councilman Williamson.
I move that we table until the next meeting.
Support.
All those in favor of tabling, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Table. Okay, item I, request approval of garbage licenses for Republic Waste, Waste Management, and Granger Container Service. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Okay, discussion?
Just to be clear to the council, this is just for commercial waste removal.
Mhm.
All right. Mr. McCleary, are there any issues with these that you have concerns or anything you're aware of?
I am not aware of anything, Your Honor.
Okay. City Attorney, do you have any concerns? I don't think it would be honor if you did, but do you?
No, like I said, the only thing I just want to make clear to council is that this was for commercial, not residential.
Okay. Any further comments by council? Ms. Domingo, read the roll, please.
Councilmember Reed,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Waller,
Yes.
Spicer,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
And Mayor Atchison.
Yes. Okay, item J, request approval, resolution 2020-16, a resolution to approve a temporary moratorium on the imposition of late fees for untimely water payments imposed pursuant to ordinance 86-137. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Okay, discussion. What is the expected length of the moratorium, and is this tied to the COVID-19 pandemic?
Right now, the governor's executive order runs through April 30th. It may be extended for a longer period of time. And I'm sorry, Your Honor, what was your second question?
I assumed or believed it was tied to the executive order and the COVID-19 pandemic. I just wanted to have you articulate that to make sure.
It is. It's meant to help citizens who are struggling with unemployment or other issues related to COVID-19. This is meant to try to assist our residents as much as we can during this pandemic.
Okay. Any other questions or comments by council? Mr. Mingo, please read the roll.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Lawler,
Yes.
Spicer,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Mayor Atchison.
Yes. Okay. Item K, request approval of resolution 2020-17, a resolution approving submission of 2023 local bridge program grant application for North Albion Street Bridge reconstruction project. May I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Comments, questions by council?
Whoever wrote this, thank you.
Mr. McCleary, do you want to add anything to this?
Just that, Your Honor, this is the second year that we have submitted an application under the local bridge program for the North Albion Street Bridge replacement project. The estimated cost is $1,717,000. The grant program provides up to a 95% funding of construction costs. We would be responsible for 5% of construction costs and 100% of the engineering costs. I have estimated the city's local cost, if we were awarded funding, to be approximately $429,250. And we could use, as our local matching funds, the city's Act 51 monies, our local street millage funds, or general fund contribution.
Okay. Any comments, questions by council? Okay.
Yeah, I have one, Mayor.
Okay, Councilman Lawler.
Okay, thank you. These are not funds being taken away from the, I am totally for this, but I just want to make it known to myself. These funds that the 400 and whatever thousand that the city, that you allocate the city will come up with, will that affect funds for the 2020 project for First, Second, Third, and Wild Street?
Depending on the funds that we have to use for this project, it could impact other projects. If we have to rely too much on the street millage fund, yes, it could definitely impact it. The problem is we're facing a serious situation with the North Albion Street Bridge. if we do not do something soon with that bridge, we are going to have to seriously consider closing down that bridge, which will close down that section of North Albion Street altogether. I can tell you, Counselor, that we are looking at another grant program, the Michigan Transportation Economic Development Category B program for First, Second, Third, and Wild Streets. And I am working with our engineers to move forward with a grant application for those streets.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Yep, go ahead.
So I have a question. This is
Councilwoman
Vicky.
Clark.
Vicky.
Okay, so I understand that there was a grant that was written to get that bridge corrected and it was denied. Was it rewritten? Because a lot of times it's the language that you put in the proposal and why it's denied. So was it corrected or tried to be or resubmitted at any time?
It was rewritten and additional information was put in the application that highlighted the economic importance of that bridge to the downtown area and to adjacent commercial areas. The application also identifies the recent actions that we had to take to reduce the lane width of the bridge to direct traffic toward the center supports because of the serious deterioration of the bridge. Although I will be working with Great Lakes Engineering to add some additional language to strengthen the application even further to make sure they highlight the serious condition of that bridge and hopefully move it up in the priority list for funding. You will notice that in the resolution that I drafted, I tried to highlight the best that I could the serious condition of that bridge.
Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman Spicer.
Thank you. In the interest of time, I'm going to try to be brief, or maybe you can give me a brief answer, City Manager McCleary. But the funds that were allocated for First, Second, Third, and Wild Street for 2020, so are they no longer there? And if not, what happened to that money? And you indicated that you were writing a grant for that. A grant is not a guarantee, and those citizens, residents, were expecting their streets to be completed this year. So maybe if this is a topic for the next meeting, if it's going to take too long, because of the time issue, but I guess I'd like an answer, or maybe because I don't know what's happening with that.
Sure. You raise a very important question. So my understanding is that the city has not allocated a specific amount of money for those street projects. What the council did was support making those a priority for 2020 when you consider street improvement projects. But no specific dollar amount allocation or the funding source was identified for those projects. You will be having more discussion on those projects when we bring back to you the grant application for First, Second, Third, and Wild. And that's when hopefully we will have a definitive answer on what the cost of those projects will be. How we're going to allocate funding, whether we anticipate spending carrying 100% of the costs ourselves, or if we're able to get a grant and how much we would have to come up with a local match. So you will be having more specific discussions on those streets before that grant application has to be submitted on June 1st.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I wish I had more definitive answers for you, but the action that the council took was not what I think some council members may have understood it to be.
Okay, I have to go after, I voted on that, so I guess and it was like 3 years ago, I don't remember the specifics.
Yeah.
But, okay, I will, interest of time, I thank you, and I know we got off topic, because this was about the bridge on, Austin Avenue. Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Vicki.
Can you hear me? Can you?
Go ahead, Ms. Clark.
To go along with that, I know it's kind of off topic, but it is the next thing that we're going to vote as far as the millage. And I would ask that you would go back and look at 2018, because there was a dollar amount that was attached to that and agreed upon.
Councilwoman
I
Clark,
would be happy to look at.
amount was?
I don't know the exact figures. It was sent to me in an email by a citizen, and somehow or another the email went away and I couldn't find it. Sorry.
Councilman Smith?
Yes, I just wanted to be sure with Mr. McCleary that even if this grant does go through, we wouldn't receive any funding before, I believe, 2023. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions or comments by council?
Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
Councilwoman, go ahead.
I read that over, dear Darwin, and it was really, really good. And I was also going to say, the two congressmen, Gary Tompkins and Dr. Bison and Mr. Hodgma, all went down under that bridge too, and are willing to write letters to the effect that, you know, if you wanted them, might help us out too.
Thank you, Counselor.
Okay. If there's no further comments or questions, Ms. Domingo, please read the roll.
Councilmember Lawler,
Oh, yes, yes.
Spicer,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
and Mayor Atchison.
Yes. Okay. Item L, discussion street millage renewal. Mr. McCleary.
Your Honor, our local street millage, we levy for 5-year periods. The last approval was in 2015. Our ability to levy this millage, which right now is just under 3 mils, is like 2.9 some mils because of the Headley rollback, will expire at the end of this year. So we have to go for a vote of the people to renew this millage for another 5-year period. And right now, we are just asking for council's direction that you want us to move forward with placing this on your agenda for approval of ballot language for the August special election, so that we can seek voter approval. If we go in August, if for some reason the vote fails, we have a second opportunity in November to place it back on the ballot a second time.
Comments and questions by council?
I have one, Mayor.
Councilwoman Lawler.
Okay, thank you. I just want to know, was the infrastructure committee notified that there is a street millage renewal coming up?
I just identified this issue last week when Clerk Domingo had reached out to me, asking to me and some other department heads if we had any items that needed to go on the August ballot. And that's when I looked into this and determined that that the millage renewal has to be placed on the ballot this year for next year's collection. So no, I have not had an opportunity to reach out to anybody else.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions or comments by council? One quick question, city manager. Currently, the village is 3, but with the Headley rollback, it's capped at 2.9. Is that correct?
It's at 2.9. If now the council can determine what level of millage what millage amount you want to levy, or go to a vote of the people to approve the levy. From what I understand historically, councils have asked for 3 mills. That 3 mills then gets rolled back over time when we have a millage reduction fraction. So it's been rolled back to 2.9 some mills. If the council wants to keep with past practice, you would go back for a vote of the people for a 3 mill levy. Now, if the millage is approved this year, it would be subject to any millage, to any Headley rollback that occurs after December 31st. So if you levied it in 2021, and we had a millage reduction fraction, it would not be the full 3 mills. It would be rolled back to something less than 3 mills.
Okay, so just for clarification, don't read anything into this. If the council decided to ask for 3.5 mills, are we allowed to do that? Is there room for us to raise the millage if we chose to do that?
I would ask Cullen for clarification on what if any limitation there is legally on the millage levy, and whether or not the state constitutional cap of 20 mills, so I think it's a state constitution that caps at 20 mills, whether or not that applies to special millages like road millages.
City Attorney, would you field those questions, please? Mr. Harkness?
My apologies. I was talking and I had the mute on. That's something I'll be happy to look into for council and get back to you at your next meeting. I don't have our current operating millages in front of me now, but I'll be happy to get that information, talk with the manager, and take a look at the applicable laws and get you an answer for your next meeting.
Thank you. So any other council members have comments? And if anybody has an objection to having this placed on a future agenda, please speak up.
I'd like to add something, please.
Go ahead, Councilwoman Lawler.
Okay, thank you. Just a reminder of everybody, I think, and help me out, Mayor, if I'm saying the wrong stuff. But we were sitting here discussing if we should raise the millage or not. Just keep in mind that the water millage, isn't that going to be raised also? Help me out here.
Okay, so no, at this point, we're not discussing raising the millage. My question was, because that'll be on a future agenda item, whether we want to put it on the ballot, what the millage should be, et cetera. It was a question whether or not we could go above 3. We could raise the millage after a discussion. It was not, we're not discussing now to raise it. And
okay.
The water rates and the sewer rates, which are not millage, but the rates, yeah, they're going to go up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so is there any council member that has any objection to have this on a future agenda item in May? Okay, does that answer your question, Mr. McCleary?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, last item is the discussion of the grant writer. Mr. McCleary, you want to start with that, or do you want one of the council members to start?
I believe this was an item that was of concern to Councilor Reed. So if you'd like to have her start the discussion, I would appreciate that.
Okay, Councilwoman Reed? We can't hear you, Lynn.
Okay, I was just thinking. Okay, I was saying that I was hoping that we would be able
You're breaking up at best, Miss Reed. We can barely catch anything.
I guess I'll chime in. This has been something that we've talked about since I first got on council, that we thought that we needed a grant writer to help us with some of the problems with our money.
Can you hear me?
Available. And there has been other council members that have also mentioned it in several other meetings and supported this. So we
I don't know why
with this.
It just goes to
Councilwoman Clark is speaking right now.
So that's been the main thing, because we've had grants that were wrote, and then when we tried to actually take the funds from them, the funds were no longer available without any notice. And so I guess we didn't understand the timeline or whatever, but then it wasn't resubmitted in the next fiscal year. So this is something that a grant writer would be on top of and be able to help us in a lot of different ways.
Okay, Councilwoman Reed, do you have comments? Now she's gone. Okay.
Can I say something?
Yes.
So I like the idea of hiring a grant writer.
Yes, she was, but now can you hear me?
Oh.
You still?
Yes. Councilwoman Reed. Councilman Williamson.
Okay. So I like the idea in theory of having someone dedicated just to writing grants. But I'm also I'm just wondering, is it already someone's job, and whose job is it? Or is it not? And then the other thing, and this is when I talk about community collaboration, this is kind of one of those pieces. The city of Albion is not the only entity in town that needs a grant written for it. So I'm wondering if there's some opportunity to partner with other entities to go in and hire someone who does that, or share a contractor who does that. I mean, there are people who write grants on contract all the time. So I mean, I think there are multiple ways to do this. I'm generally in support of going after as many resources as we can. But if it's too onerous on the city budget at the moment, especially with the current situation,
All right, hang on a second, I'll get you on.
I'm hoping that we could find, and to use Mr. McCleary's word, some innovation around how we do that. So without maybe having to take on the full cost. So I just wanted to say that I don't have a lot to add to this conversation going forward about that, because again, this is getting into the weeds of running the city. But I do want to say this is really a moment where we could probably be innovative and creative about how we do this. That way we don't have to take on a huge expense, but also work with other folks. So I yield.
Okay. So my comment is this, Mr. McCleary, perfectly well said, Councilman Williamson. How you get this done is really on your shoulders. We can help work with you and come up with innovative ideas. At the end of the day, what we would like to know as council, I believe, is what is your plan to improve the number of grants that are submitted and approved? Whether that's, as Councilman Williams just said, identify the staff member who's a substantial part of their duties, and that's just in the importance, I don't know the amount of time, is writing grants for the city. Is your plan to task every one of your department heads, hey, you're the expert in your field? Yeah, that's part of your job, is to at least identify the grants that we should be going after. Or how do you want to deal with this? We can work with you. We can suggest ideas. At the end of the day, we want to know how you're going to move forward and increase the number of grants that are applied for and are successful. The last two, I think it was two, I know the one we were speaking about today, the solution was to contract that out. And it's a very important thing we need to get done. I question whether or not the city can afford to have that our model of getting those things done, is to contract out every time we need to get a grant. And I'm not saying you're suggesting that. Again, I'm coming back and saying, tell us what your plan is to improve the number and the success of getting the grants approved. We can get together and brainstorm and come up with ideas. I like the public-private partnership, as Councilman Williamson stated. Grants are a fact of life around here, and a lot of entities depend on them. So, Councilwoman, I can see you. Do you have comments?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm working through Chief Kip's phone.
And we can see you.
I think it's necessary that we have a grant writer because, okay, after the first grant that was written by Dr. Mitchell, I got other people to help me with those grants that worked at other organizations like Albion College. And there was a couple more people that got together and helped me research and stuff. But every time something comes up about the city, I usually get on the internet, just start running through and seeing what I can find as far as monies available, like grants. And you know, you see a lot of them out there, but unless you've got someone who can write an effective grant like Darwin just did, I think that grant that you wrote was really good. And I'm thinking that we're going to get that money, you know, but the thing of it is, you have to have somebody who's effective to do that. Somebody who really can put in the right words and the right information in order to get it. But everybody's always saying there's money out there, there's money out there. And from what I see, there is. I was looking up some things about recreation for children and for seniors today. And I was seeing a lot of things that if we had grant money, and there's grants, and it was naming different cities that had gotten these grants. If we had a good grant writer, we would probably be able to get a lot more than what we get or getting.
If I could just clarify something, Your Honor. First of all, thank you so much, Councilor Reed. I do want to clarify for you, I wrote the resolution that is going with the grant application. I did not write the grant application. That was actually done by Great Lakes Engineering. So I want to give proper credit where it's due, and that was with Great Lakes Engineering. I wrote the resolution.
It is, you have to have people who know what things to pull out and put in to be really effective.
Okay. Any other comments by council? Okay.
Yes, I have one, please.
Councilwoman Lawler.
Okay, thank you. Darwin, this question is for you. Do you need help with people do you need help with people with grant writing? Do you need help with that?
Thank you for that question. There are some grants that we can write in-house. It depends on two things: the funding source and the type of project that we're looking at. Some projects, like bridge reconstruction, involve a lot of technical expertise just to prepare the application. I would recommend that when we have those types of grant opportunities, we are better off investing the money in contracting with professional firms to prepare those applications, whether it's an engineering firm or someone who has that expertise. There are many grants that are provided through local organizations where we do have the capacity to write those in-house. And I will rely on my department heads and the assistant city manager to prepare those grant applications, depending on the type of grant and the project. I can tell you that in the assistant city manager job description, grant writing, grants procurement and administration is one of the duties for that job. So it will have to be a coordinated and shared effort between staff inside the organization, and based on the level of expertise that's necessary, some of them we will have to contract outside. If we want a position that is dedicated to grant writing, that is something we're going to have discussions on during budget time and see if we can program that into next year's budget.
Okay, I have one more, please, Mayor.
Councilwoman Lawler.
Okay, thank you. Just for, I mean, I'm just gonna throw something out there when we sit there and we talk about how we can budget a grant writer. When people write grants, are we able to put their salary in a grant?
Sometimes it provides for an allocation of administrative costs as part of the grant program. Many times it does not. So it all depends on the grant, the type of grant. Community development block grants specifically include up to a 10% allocation for administrative costs. But like I said, many other grant programs may not allow for that type of cost to be funded.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Williamson.
I also just want to add, there's a really common misconception in the fundraising field that that you can do a grant writer and pay them upon getting the grant, or they get paid when you get the grant, or you generally what you want to avoid doing is paying by grant, or where you have them write and get a percentage. That's generally considered unethical in the fundraising field. So when you pay a fundraiser, or a grant writer is considered a fundraiser, when you pay a fundraiser, you're usually going to pay them as you would through a contract, or hire them on as a salary, or share in the salary with someone else. And no matter how much money they bring in, they still get paid, and that's generally the ethical way to do it. And again, almost every grant allows for some administrative costs to be charged to the grant, usually nowhere in excess of 15 or 18%. But the right way to do this if we're going to work with someone, or if there's ever going to be a situation where we hire somebody, it would be to make sure that we pay them right along as you go. That would be the best practice in all of this. So I'm happy to help you with Darwin. I want to offer my help in this field. This is my field. I love this work. If you want some help figuring out who to find and where to find people, I know all sorts of folks who would be willing to help you. I also know that you have some staff members who are actually pretty good. If there's some coaching, I can hook you up with people who have coaching experience, etc. That would not be me, because that would, as a council person, that just probably wouldn't be the right thing. But I want to make sure that you have resources available to you. Thanks.
So thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so what I'm gonna when we get to future agenda items, I'm gonna ask, I'm gonna schedule to put on the agenda to have the city manager come back and tell us whether it's the next council meeting or the one after that, your plan to approach and tackle the grant writing. Heard a variety of ideas here, all of them very good. So I'm leaving this in you in the driver's seat, how the city's gonna go do this. You got a lot of people that want to assist you in any way that we can. So any other comments by council? If not, we'll move to public future agenda items. So any other comments by council? Okay, Councilwoman Clark, do you have future agenda items?
Follow up and to find out if the amount of money that was offered for those streets from my district.
Vicky, we can't hear you.
Thank you, Chief.
Now I can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Just to follow up with the money that was designated for Wall Street, 3rd Street, and 2nd Street. I think it was, the meeting was on like the 18th or something, and it was a two follow-up meetings behind that. And if the money was available, then what happened to it, and why wasn't it spent as appropriated?
Okay. Any other?
If I could just ask a question on that, just for clarification. What was the date on that?
The first meeting when they discussed it was January. Hold on. I'll it down somewhere. I'll look it up real quick. So the first meeting had been the 22nd, when it was brought to the attention of January, and then I think there was a follow-up meeting 2 weeks after that, or maybe even 4 weeks after that, but it was in that ballpark.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Reed.
No,
Future agenda items.
not that I can think of at the time.
Okay. Councilman Smith.
No, sir.
Councilwoman Lawler.
Yes, thank you. I have a couple things. I would like to get some things off the table that's been on the for a long time, that we possibly have overlooked. So I would like to bring up the ratification. If we don't do it, if we're not gonna do it, let's just get it off the table. Funds for 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and Wild Street. I'd like some update of where we looking for those funds. Was funds said to be put to the side for this project? The Clark Street project is, where's the grant and how is it going? And I don't want to be waiting like just a couple days to make a decision on this. So I want to know where we stand with the Clark Street project, or the grant, that where the money's coming from or whatever. But and I also want to add the 6 items that the Mayor expressed, that the city manager wanted us to approve, like all that, to give him an approval that we will do our part to try to help him, and to actually put a discussion on the table of, do we want to somehow get the attorney Smith in a special meeting, or get him on the phone and we have questions about anything. I know they said that there was a video of it, but I would like to ask if we could have like a group discussion with him, just so that we have something specific that we might want to ask him. So those are just some things that me and some of the community members are concerned about. Please and thank you.
Councilwoman Spicer.
So,
Future agenda item. Okay. Councilman Williamson.
I was just going to say, we're members of MML too. And we had one speaker came in that talked with us one time. I think her name was Coco. And that was about the same thing. And we also had Attorney Smith. So whichever one will be the cheapest if necessary.
Councilman Williamson.
The Lions Club has submitted their annual application for their fundraiser that I think they do right out at Family Fair. Can we get that on the next agenda so we get that approved? I've been contacted by a few folks about that. I want to make sure we get that done before the end of, or at the first week of May.
Okay, yeah, their white cane, I think is what what we're looking at. It's in June, so yeah, we'll put that on the agenda for the 1st of May, and by that time we'll know what the stay home and those kind of rules and regulations are and how to work through that. As Chief Kip and Mr. Mingo have reminded me, I did ask the agenda add for the council to vote, to discuss and vote to task the city manager to reach out to MML, ICMA, and see if there are consultants, resources that can help us work together more collaboratively. So I'll make the motion that the council direct the city manager to reach out to the NML and/or the ICMA and/or other organizations you may be aware of that can offer some assistance and suggestions on how we can be more productive and get more things done and work together better. That's the motion. Is there support?
Support.
Okay. Discussion?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I hate to be the stickler parliamentarian here, but technically I think you need to add it to the agenda. We're going to have an action item and then vote on it. I'm sorry.
We did add it at the beginning of the meeting when we were approving the agenda. I asked that it be added to the agenda and then I forgot.
My apologies then. I missed
No,
that.
it's okay. Okay, so is there discussion by council?
What a discussion. Can you repeat that? I got lost.
This is to direct the city manager to reach out to Michigan Municipal League and/or the international, the ICMA, or if Mr. McCleary knows of a different organization that he would want us to work with, working together better and moving forward. So that's what the motion is. It's tasking the city manager to do that.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Welcome. Any other questions by council? Mr. McCleary, do you have comments on that?
Yes,
I
I
have
have
none.
one, Mayor, please.
Okay, Councilwoman Lawler.
Okay, thank you. So are you requesting like I had just asked about if we can get either the Attorney Smith or the Miss Coco in? Are you suggesting he do? Is that what you're suggesting? Something
No.
like that?
No. Mr. McCleary, do you have,
Okay, you gotta give.
which organization you would suggest to go to?
Mayor, I would like to reach out to 2 or 3 of those organizations and see what services they can provide and what the costs are, and then make a recommendation to council on which one to go with.
Okay. Councilwoman Lawler, do you have another comment or question?
Yeah, I'm not clear. And if you could please help me out. I'm not clear on what we voting on.
It's what we discussed during the study session that nobody had any objection to, which was to reach out to the Michigan Municipal League or the ICMA or another organization that the city manager may be familiar with on how we work together. It's not tied to the charter. It's not the definitions of roles and responsibilities. That's not what this is about, which is what my perception and understanding of what Attorney Smith has done in the past. And if people want to refer to that video, I'm sure the city staff can point us to the right video if you wish to go back and review that video. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it'll have to do. Okay.
Okay. Hearing no, Councilwoman Spicer.
Now, are we back to future agenda items?
No, we have not voted on this motion yet.
Okay.
So it's been moved and seconded. Is there any other discussion on this? Seeing none, Ms. Domingo, would you please read the roll?
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Beth,
Yes.
Lawler,
Yeah.
Spicer,
Yes.
Williamson,
Yes.
and Mayor Atchison.
Yes. Okay, now we are back to future agenda items. Councilman Smith?
None.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Lawler?
What was the no, I don't have anything else besides what I already expressed.
Thank
Right.
you. Councilwoman Spicer?
Thank you. I said I didn't have any initially when you went around, but in retrospect, I was thinking that perhaps council could, in talking about and reflecting back on an earlier conversation about the city manager being out in the community and you as well. And I was reflecting or thinking that perhaps council members could or should be out in the community more. I don't know. I know we're out in our precinct and we do our precinct annual meetings or biannually or monthly or however you conduct those. But I was thinking perhaps we could consider as a council basically something, an ordinance, resolution to encourage us to get involved in the community and become, members of the Rotary or the Chamber, or we could even designate a council member for those specific organizations. I don't know. That's just kind of came to my mind, and I'm kind of just, talking, rambling, and just throwing out thoughts. So it's just something that I wanted to throw out to council. I don't know how they feel about that or whatever.
We'll include that on the agenda, getting more involvement by council in the community. And if we can find ways to do things collectively as the council, that's always good too. I absolutely agree with you. Councilman Smith, I saw your hand. Do you have a?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that a few council members and also the mayor, we do a lot of volunteer work in town through the Food Hub and the United Way and quite a few other organizations here in town. So yeah, there are plenty of opportunities for us out there. We just have to get out and get involved. You are correct.
Okay. I think I've asked everybody. I have a couple of additional items that I'll let you know what I'm going to ask to have put on there. City Manager McCleary, I did read your report. If we could get an update in May on the sidewalk committee and when you think we're going to get a recommendation, because summer's coming, we would like to get that work done. We'll put on the agenda the street millage. You asked about that, so we can have a discussion, and I'm assuming you're going to come back with a proposed language for the ballot. And either the first meeting in May or the second, probably earlier is better than later. I'd like to get an update on how many properties we were not able to reconnect for water service. And I believe the executive order had some kind of a report that was due. Has that report been submitted? If so, could council get a copy of it? And either on the next meeting, or we'll pick a study session, probably makes more sense in the next 2 weeks, hopefully, to relook at assigned goals and priorities for the city manager, taking into consideration where we are now, the pandemic, and narrowing those down perhaps a little bit. But I'll work with you, city manager, and if you work with Ms. Domingo, and we'll go out and we'll figure out what's a day and time that we can have a study session to talk about goals. Or a special council meeting so that we can vote on them, I guess. And on the next first meeting in May, on the agenda will be a discussion of the economic impact of COVID-19, not just economic, but the impact of the city. And so I'm looking to you, Mr. McCleary, to work with Tom Mead. And we had an earlier discussion, I guess, was text back and forth about kind of coming up with what you think the impact is going to be economically with our revenue streams. But I'm going to set up a meeting with representatives from nonprofits. I'm going to reach out to Mr. Kraus from the Community Foundation. I'll work with you, Councilmember Williamson. You may have other ideas. So the nonprofits, a representative from the churches. I spoke with Amy DePries from the EDC today. Scott Evans from the bank who's processing loans and also is the chair of the Downtown Development Authority. Get hold of Eric from the Chamber of Commerce to get an input on the business. We're going to have a discussion next week on Wednesday. And then out of that, that'll be presented and brought forward to council. But I want to have a better understanding how various aspects of our community, how hard they're being hit. I know the churches are getting hit hard because without people showing up for services and doing the right thing to stay home, that has an economic impact, et cetera. So that'll be on the agenda, the first meeting in May. If there's no other comments, I think we are up to the city manager report. Did we already go through that? I apologize. I'm confused now. No, future agenda items. Next is public comment.
Right.
So do we have public comments this evening, Chief?
Mr. Tompkins is on. It's the only one I see.
Outstanding.
Come on, Shade, man. Hey, good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, City Manager McCleary, everybody watching this evening. Certainly missed seeing you guys in person. And as we well know, there's a lot of things going on right now with everything, and I'll try to be as brief as I can, so bear with me real quickly. At our April 14th Cowan County Commission meeting was our 2020 equalization report. Overall in the county, we've seen real and personal property increase about 4.7% in 2019, and taxable value overall in the county increased by about 2.5% in 2019. Further details of that equalization report will be presented, including details about the city of Albion and the 7th District. And I think what you'll be very pleased with is what we're seeing, the continued positive trends we're seeing in Albion. So stay tuned for that. At the senior millage allocation level, we approved 4 reappointments on that committee, including Albion's very own Tom Hunsdorfer. It's going to run through April 30th, 2023. We also approved Cowan County Mental Health Authority reappointments, 4 reappointments on the Cowan County Mental Health Authority, including our very own Marcia Starkey. Also will be through March 31st, 2023. Additionally, we approved the reciprocal emergency law enforcement agreement with municipalities in Cowan County, which includes the city of Albion, which will allow officers to perform law enforcement duties anywhere in the county during emergencies like COVID-19. That'll go on as needed. We are continuing to have our weekly briefing meetings at the Joint Operations Center between Cowan County and the city of Battle Creek on updates on the state of the virus, certainly in Cowan County, including reports from the health department, the sheriff, and others to give us updates on information. As we know, as of today at 4:15, we've got 149 confirmed cases in Cowan County with 44 hospitalizations and 5 deaths. So we'll continue to do this Joint Operations Center meetings as long as necessary to make sure that everybody in the county collectively is up to date on the most information. Our county offices will remain closed until April 30th in response certainly to the governor's executive order. My current newsletter on page 7 details how you can reach the different departments with questions or et cetera. Give you a perfect example. I had a individual call me on Friday regarding a necessity to get a drain field permit, and it was having no luck in terms of getting it in touch with anybody. And fortunately, I was able to get her in touch with somebody within an hour to take care of what she needs in terms of permits. So if anybody needs any help in terms of they're having difficulty reaching any departments within the county, please give me a call and I'll do what I can to help anybody out. Real quickly on item K on your agenda regarding the North Albion Street Bridge, I believe Councilmember Reed had also made a comment about. We went down and actually physically seen that. And we've known that this bridge has been bad for some time. And I certainly applaud the city of Albion for their application, the grant application, going through the current process that you have to go through. But I think Councilmember Spicer said it well in terms of it's just an application, it's just a grant. There's no guarantee that that grant will be approved. And that's one of the reasons why I've been pushing my road plan. I know it's ad nauseum to everybody, but the money in that road plan you guys would have without having to, what I would say, have to beg through grant application process to get it. Instead, you'd have the money you need in order to take care of it. So I'm going to, even though we're going through the virus situation, I will continue behind the scenes to continue to push it, because quite frankly, you guys as well as many others certainly within the state are struggling with how to deal with bridges and roads, and we've got to find a different way to fund them so that you get the money and not having to hope and wish that you may get the money with a bridge that very well may close. Real quickly, it was mentioned regarding and I apologize, I'm just going to give you some information because as you guys well know, I put a lot of information out after your guys' meetings. And as Councilman Clark, on June 4th of 2018, in your meeting, in the Albion City Council meeting, you voted on the 2019 street project plan with the first, second, and third streets to be addressed in 2020. So there was action that was taken and some specifics related to that. So maybe that'll help you guys in your search in terms of finding that specific information. So again, the June 4th meeting of 2018 is where that was actually passed at that point in time. Real quickly, on a positive note, the Michigan Department of Transportation will begin work on M199 starting Monday, April 27, 2020. They'll be resurfacing 4 miles of M199 starting from exit 119 just off I-94 leading all the way up to where M199 meets Superior Street. So it's a pretty good stretch, which includes Austin Avenue. So expect to see some road crews out there starting Monday, April 27th. So with everything that's been said, that leads me to my next point. Talking with leaders in Lansing, one of the things that we're looking at is a potential $1 to $4 billion shortfall. And we could very likely see 20% across the board cuts, which will affect not only county, but municipalities and townships and everybody in between. And it's just something that that unfortunately we're all going to deal with, unfortunately, due to the whole situation. There will be an appropriations caucus that will be taking place tomorrow. And I hope to have more information that I'll share with you folks going forward with that. And then early May, there's also what we call the real numbers will be revealed at the Consensus Revenue Estimating Conference that'll actually give us a really clear impact in terms of what's going on. I will share with you some information I did find out regarding schools. That's relative to, we could be looking at a potential proration cut at the end of this year, and also potentially see anywhere from a $325 per student to $1,000 per student cut for next year. So the seriousness of, I know, I agree, Shane. Look, absolutely. I mean, that's a significant impact to our school districts. I just think all of us need to be quite aware of that and be prepared to fight back against that, because it's going to be incredibly challenging for not only school districts, but municipalities and everybody else to fight through this situation. So just keep on it, and certainly applaud you for tracking all of your costs associated with COVID-19 and the virus. Because there's going to be a real push to also get reimbursed for those costs that go above and beyond your normal costs to make sure you're addressing that. So continue to work to get that done as well. Again, if you're interested in receiving my monthly newsletter by email, please contact me at tompkinscc7@gmail.com. That's tompkinscc7@gmail.com. I'll get you signed up. Again, that information's to be out there. I haven't, with the COVID-19, certainly the hard copies have not been available, so I've been very respectful of that. And then finally, just want to indicate to everybody, I hope all of your families are doing well during this time. And we'll continue to say, stay safe, stay home if you can. And we're only one day closer to getting through this at some point in time. And we will be stronger together, and I'm hoping to work continuously towards that. So, and then finally, thank you to everyone out there, first responders, policemen, nurses, hospital volunteers, everybody. Thank you to everyone who has worked through this to combat the virus. Each one of you folks are appreciated, so I do appreciate that very much, and we'll continue to do that. As a matter of fact, just on one sad note, which is indicative that it all hits us in different ways, had a lady 2 weeks ago call me asking for some food because she had been recently quarantined with suspected symptoms. Unfortunately, I read that unfortunately she passed. So so it's all hitting us very closely, and we're taking all this very, very seriously, as I know I am as well, with having a son that's got asthma, and I've got two parents that have survived, are cancer survivors. So I understand how very, very important it is to make sure we do stay safe and stay home if we can. So with that being said, if there's any assistance I can be of any of you folks, as well as anybody out there listening, please contact me, and I'll be more than happy to do what I can to help. So again, it's great to be with you folks, and hopefully we're going to get to a point where we get to see each other again in person. So I know I like to hug and I like to shake hands, so I'm going to have to be real careful not doing that anymore, but still, it's great to see all you folks, and thank you very much for this evening. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
I'd
Commissioner.
like to ask a question, please, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Marcola.
Okay, thank you. Hi, Gary. I have a question for you that maybe you might need some time to get it together for me. So I just
Sure.
want to say that I will give you, I'll call you or sometime contact you at least by Thursday. But I know you do a lot of things with the senior citizens, and there is a senior citizen that is in need of a hot water heater. He is 86
Okay.
years old. So I would like to give you time to see if there's any resources that can help him and give you a call or some type of message, email, and contact you on Thursday if that is okay.
That would be wonderful. Please do. We'll get him the help that he needs. Thank you very much. And like I said, we'll get him what he needs. Just let me know. Give me a call or email, and we'll take care of it. Thank you.
Okay, appreciate it.
Commissioner Tompkins.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I just wanted to extend my personal condolences to you, your daughter, and your family on the loss of your future son-in-law. So
Thank you.
I just wanted to publicly state that. So I hope you all are well and are healing and keeping the faith.
Well, and I thank you for that. It's been a tough thing for my daughter, expecting to take her to walk her down the aisle, not have to go through what we had to go through. But I will say one thing nice about the technology we have is her and I keep in touch on a daily basis via FaceTime and all that other stuff that's available. And she's doing much better. So thank you very much. I do appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, Mr. McCleary, City Manager's report.
Your Honor, just real quick, I provided council with an update on our activities under the COVID-19 pandemic situation. We are operating under several executive orders, and I listed those for you that are applicable to the city. We continue to urge our citizens to stay home and stay safe. Only go out in public when you need to take care of essential household needs, such as grocery shopping, medical appointments, or pharmacy visits, things of that nature. The governor has extended the stay home order until April 30th, at which time it'll be reviewed once again. I provided you with a staffing update. As council is aware, we had a break-in at the Streets Division building, and 2 of the 3 perpetrators have been apprehended. And I want to express my appreciation to our public safety officers as well as the county sheriff's department for their quick response and quick action to catch the perpetrators. So we sincerely appreciate it. I received concerns from a council member on 2 items: damaged sidewalk at 604 Sycamore Street, as well as damaged pavement near a catch basin on South Dalrymple and Mechanic Streets. DPS is aware of those 2 concerns. They should have put barricades out at those today, and they will be following up on repairs for those. The Irwin Avenue reconstruction project moves forward. They're continuing to remove the existing pavement. They're installing new water main. They're doing flat work on the west end of the project. And that flat work will start will start back up next week, as well as restoration work on the west end that is also being completed. Right now, that project remains on schedule. The North Clark Street reconstruction project, the city engineer and I held a virtual public informational meeting with several residents on North Clark Street last week to discuss the project timing, scope of work, and other issues. The engineer will be meeting on site with residents individually, although socially distancing, to discuss their specific issues with their properties. One of the main issues that people have, main concerns, is tree removal. The project design is expected to be done by the end of April. Bidding should be completed by the end of May, and project completion is expected by late October into mid-November. The project involves pulverizing the existing roadway, widening the roadway to provide paved shoulders to accommodate the large trucks, constructing ditches and other drainage improvements, and surfacing the roadway. And as council is aware, we've received a $340,000 Transportation Economic Development Fund Category A grant for this project. Haven Road Utilities extension, I'm working with the engineer on that project. This project involves the extension of sanitary sewer to the south side of the road in anticipation of improvements to Haven Road in 2023. Water main will be extended down 29 Mile Road near the driveway of the Equestrian Center. We are currently working to obtain an easement from Albion College and to submit the water and sewer permit applications to the state. The bid process will then be completed. The project is being funded using MEDC grant funds that were left over from another project that must be expended or forfeited at the end of this year. Some other projects I'm working with our engineer on are the Transportation Asset Management Plan, the USDA water system improvements, the wastewater treatment plan improvements, and community-wide asset management plan. I met with the city's website designer, Revise, last week to review a demo and discuss the redesign of the city's website this year. Because our contract calls for us to get a redesign. And Revise is going to be providing me with additional information and the contract extension this week. And as I noted, I will be scheduling sidewalk program fund review and code enforcement review committee meetings for next week. Mayor, that's all I have at this time.
Thank you, Mr. McCleary. Okay, we'll go to mayor and council member comments. Are there any comments by council members? Councilman Smith. You're on mute, sir.
Yeah, I love that button. I just want to remind everyone on council and who's listening along with us, COVID-19 is a monster. It is going to be affecting us not only up until the end of the quarantine, but financially it's going to be affecting not only the people, but the city possibly for years to come. We're definitely going to have to look at tightening our belts. There's some things that everybody wants to happen that if it comes down to the city having to do it, it may not happen just because there's no money. It's a fact of life. So we may want to consider that when you say, I'm in the city of Albion, you are Albion. You're not just a citizen, you are the city. So that's something we might look at getting together this summer when we're allowed to get back together, and possibly put together some projects as citizens that we might be able to do to help improve the look and the appeal of the city. Just an idea I've had. Thank you for your time. I yield.
I have something.
Councilman Williamson.
Thank you. I just want to remind everyone to, if you're able and willing to, please support the Albion Homer United Way. They have an emergency relief fund set up at albionhomeruw.org with the generous match from the Albion Community Foundation up to $12,500. We're just under $700 away from our goal. And we want to exceed that goal. The need is really, really getting large. We have kind of a pandemic coordinating council that meets usually weekly, and then we have a food subcommittee. we are starting to see our friends and neighbors who we did not think would need to take advantage of some of these services with food and diapers and clothing. They need it. It's out there. The need is growing at a very large and alarming rate. And so just so you know, 100% of every dollar donated to that relief fund gets put back out into the community in relatively short order as the needs continue to rise. So again, I want to recognize the mayor. I want to recognize Marcia Starkey. I want to recognize Tim Kraus, Laura Overholt, Amy DePreez, Helen Guzzo from Count County Senior Millage, Eric Worley from the Chamber of Commerce, Amy Ryman from Oakland Hospital, Megan Taft from Summit Point. There's so many partners meeting to try to make sure that our needs are met here in the greater Albion and Homer area. Art Kale as well. So please be on the lookout for more information as it becomes available, and please go to albionhomeruw.org and make a gift if you feel so moved. So again, thanks, thank you so much for your support so far. And then I also wanted to add that I really hope we can get in compliance with the governor's order about flags and get some of the Christmas stuff down or the holiday stuff that's kind of hung around at City Hall as well. So thanks, everyone.
Okay. Councilwoman Lawler.
Okay, thank you. First and foremost, I want to give credit where credit is due to our public safety. The madness and events that have been occurring in my precinct. I really appreciate you guys putting things to rest in a timely manner. I just want to thank my residents for staying out of the way and letting our public safety do their job in an effective manner, so for the safety of all of us here. So I just want to foremost and just say that I really do appreciate that. The second thing, I had forgot to add a future agenda item, and it was about a neighborhood grant for people to fix up their homes that's elderly. And it was for, at one point in time, for precinct 1 and 4. And Darwin, could you possibly talk to the clerk Snyder about it? Because she knows a little bit more about it. She had once upon a time talked to myself and Councilmember Clark about it. So I'm just wondering where that grant go to. Are we still gonna apply for it? And just, is it gonna surface this year at all? So with that being said, thank you. And it was a good meeting tonight.
Councilwoman Reed, do you have comments this evening? Okay, may I have a motion to adjourn? Oh, Councilwoman Spicer, I thought you already did. Go ahead. You're on mute.
Thank you. I don't know how you can mistake me comment. I rarely speak, Mayor. I just want to say that we have had a few glitches with the way that we're conducting meeting, but by God, we're here and moving forward, taking care of the city's business. And I also want to point out that the city clerk had asked me at my precinct meeting, which takes place in May, which I may have to rethink, to ask for people to come and sign up to possibly work the polls for the August and November elections. So I don't know what's going to happen with this COVID, when that meeting will take place, but I just wanted to mention it while we have this broadcast going out, that if anyone is interested, they should contact the city clerk in working the upcoming elections. And I want to thank my colleagues for voting tonight to basically state that it's unethical for council members, because we may end up ultimately having to work if she doesn't get enough people. That is all. Thank you very much.
Comments by council tonight? If not, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Support.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Adjourn.
Thanks, Kip.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
No problem. Glad it worked.
Hey, Scott.
Yeah,
You want me to just leave this down here?
yep, I'll get it. Thanks.
I'm gonna leave both of them because I'll just come down or bring mine to you or something.
Okay.
All right, bye. Thank you. Bye.
Good night.
Good night.